mental activity most of the time, as I see it, is running unchecked, unstoppably active, because the function of our dualistic aspect of mind, basically like right, wrong, right, yes, no, is to resolve contradictions or solve problems, right? So if I'm experiencing the contradiction of like I'm hungry and I need to eat food, like there's something happening in me, hunger, and there's a desire for food that needs to be resolved, and so I have to maybe come up with like, okay, how do I do this? I'm going to go make a sandwich. What do I feel like eating today? This is probably not a good example, but let's think of another one. I feel unsafe. Why? Oh, because maybe I am aware of things going on in the world that are frightening to my sense of survival, and so then my mind gets into, oh, like there's war going on, that's bad. I see that it's because of these things. I heard this person on TV blaming this cause, and so I am now ruminating on what is right and wrong and what can be done about it, or what could happen of it that I want to prepare for to secure a greater sense of safety. Okay, I feel like that's a much better example. And I'll just use an example that sparked this for me yesterday, which I was going through traffic. There was construction, it was slowing things down. We were being diverted off of a road and it didn't make sense. And I was feeling an emotional reaction about it. And as I looked at myself, I realized that if I were the people making the construction, I would understand why we made that decision. And if I were them driving through it, I wouldn't feel that emotional reaction. And so it just hit me that like understanding ends that chronic problem-solving dualistic matrix activity. And I also realized that everything is understandable if I am able to take the point of view of the one who is the progenitor of whatever it is that's being enacted. I can see that perspective. If I were able to see that perspective, I would go, okay, I get it. That doesn't mean I have to be like an ally to the intention. I can still carry out my own intention, even if it's in opposition. So again, like if I am at war with somebody in some way because we have opposing intentions, and there's no reconciliation beyond what's happening, that's fine. There's an inner experience of condemnation and judgment and hatred, and that is what I can free myself of, even while going through the actions of opposition. And I think this is one of the really big points in the Bhagavad Gita, where Arjuna is a king or a general, and he's about to go to battle, and then I think Shiva appears to him and shows him the truth of reality and that everything's one, and I can't remember what else, and he comes out and he's like, how can I go to war? And Shiva's like, so I can't remember what he said, but he's like, basically like, because you're supposed to. And so he does, but he's a changed being, and he does so with a level of empathy and compassion and understanding that brings him inner freedom, and I would dare say allows him to engage in war in a way that is balanced. It would be like if I see an apple tree, instead of taking all the apples and then cutting it down and so that I could have it forever, and like it's this really unbalanced way of approaching this thing. I will take what I need. I can tell when it's enough, and I don't have this like inner turmoil that causes me to approach things in a way that's taking so much from the ecosystem that it drains it. And I think that really feels like the main point for me is we're supposed to be exactly as flawed and fucked up as we are. That's why we're that, right? It's like reality is the standard. Like that is what we're supposed to meet, that you can't argue against the way reality is. And things go awry, they become imbalanced when you are in a state of consciousness that is informed by disagreeing with the way reality is, which is judgment, right? Judgment and rejection, which ultimately is self-rejection, because there is no part of my experience of reality that isn't also in some way me. So I can still, again, experience that I have like a health need, and I can act out the intention that is contrary to the reality of that health problem and move towards a healthier state, while at the same time experiencing an inner reality of absolute neutral acceptance of where it is currently at. And the thing about what I guess this looks like a paradox, but I can feel and I witness how really it only seems like a paradox to the mind that is trying to find like a final resolution to whatever it is we're talking or thinking about. And a resolution would mean that things stop changing, they stop shifting. It can be like, okay, that's over, we're done. And the thing about reality is it's always shifting, it's always changing, it's always moving to the next moment before we even really can grasp the moment that just passed. And so to align with reality would be to be in the flow of change. So, I think this kind of gets into the thing of like no grasping, no aversions. And that's kind of one of like the core tenets of, I would say, all spirituality. Buddhism is very like granular and scientific about the way that they describe it. So Buddhist terminology, at least for me, like comes to the forefront the most often when talking about stuff like this. So yeah, I mean, this is why like everybody's wrong in their interpretation of things, and it's so understandable. It's so effortlessly and obviously understandable that everybody is interpreting things the way that they are, and therefore acting out the way that they are, that it's as good as if they were right. And in that way, we are all right. We are all right in our attempt, in our movement through life. And so we don't have to be condemned as wrong. Because again, it's so understandable. It's like nobody's being fully true, because to like speak truth would require something infinitely less than words and more, in a way. But you can be honest. And so you're embodying the essence of truthfulness as a quality of expression, not as result necessarily in the way that we can calculate things with our minds again. And again, that's kind of the point. I don't think you could have an experience if you weren't shielding yourself from the full picture in some way. It's like if you were seeing something moving infinitely fast, you wouldn't be able to see it because it couldn't be measured by your eyesight. And so if you were to witness the infinity of reality, it would be the equivalent of seeing nothing at all, because you cannot measure it with your sensations, which is what we use to perceive experience. So it seems like, okay, well, you know, if it's impossible to comprehend truth in its totality, how do I come into contact with truth? And I just think that you are already in contact with truth. And so it's just a matter of seeing that and working through the different parts of yourself that feel like they need additional something like proof to just let go into it. So again, like coming back to this example I'm trying to orbit around, I know that if I really look at my own perspective and beliefs and actions and all of it, the good and the bad, especially the worst, I can see like, you know, I am doing my best, and it's from a flawed place in its way, but I can understand myself. I can look at this and be like, you know, despite all of my shoulds and shouldn'ts that I carry, and maybe I don't carry any of them, I get it. And I can see how if an all-powerful being was looking down at me and it could see my entire mind and life, it'd be like, dude, I get it. Your life is hard in many ways. You are ignorant and foolish and naive and in pain in many ways. And you have this limited body to carry all of that and try to go through the world. And it makes sense that that's how you would be. It makes sense that you would want to be better, that you fail and succeed at that. And it's just total compassion. It doesn't exclude the goodwill of, you know, improvement and success in the ways that really matter. But it's understandable. And I feel like anybody could agree that if you really, truly, truly allowed yourself to forget yourself and empathize with any other person, even the worst people, you can see that it was understandable for them too, based on where they're at. Because how else could they be? Even if they reach a horribly flawed outcome from our perspective, and it's collectively agreed, any of us, if we were put in that exact circumstance, I feel certain that we would do the same thing. And I think that this is a very complete expression of empathy that we all have total access to. And it is maybe threatening to turn on that empathy because it means that I have to let go of my conviction in absolutes, and that like I am unquestionably right in any particular way, because any opinion I have about how things are supposed to be, there's always an exception. And in fact, there's always an infinite number of exceptions to that. So, you know, I think through this mode of empathy, we can take these qualities of, I would call this one love, and we can see how it is universal. And I don't need to be able to understand everybody's position, to know that everybody's position is understandable. So much so that whatever is able to access their perspective in that way to bring full understanding, it would love them. And so I know that I can love them with such confidence that I don't need to go through those extra steps in order for my love for them to be made alive. So I want to share this idea because as I've come to connect to the raw experience of the reality of this, the potential that I see as true of this, my mind becomes very quiet. Tension leaves my body. All of these inner arguments that I've been having with life and people and ideas, they just end, because it all softens into the neutrality of, oh, there's actually nothing to fight against internally, because I know that it is understandable. And I don't even have to understand how or why. And what incredible peace that brings. And then availability for insight. And you'll find, as you connect to this in a real way, and you become quiet and soft and open in your energy, in your mental space, insight just flows through. And there's a really amazing capacity for seeing things clearly. So it's like I try my best when I share things like this to share it in a way that kind of creates an opportunity for whoever's listening to have their own realization of it, because you can like learn it and intellectually be like, yeah, okay, that makes sense, and then it sort of gets filed away in my body of knowledge that I could then still use to argue against the part of me that's disagreeing with that, right? And so it doesn't actually do what it is intended to do, what it did for me. And so again, if this is meaningful to you, I hope that you can find a way to meditate on these qualities of your own experience and see where you can find that moment of blossoming of, oh, I can understand this person, idea, event, situation that I feel intrinsic opposition towards. And you'll know that it's genuine when you feel yourself let go of your judgment, tension, distaste, whatever it is towards them, because ultimately that's your separation from them or it. And though conventionally we are separate from those things, internally, our experience of it, that's a whole experience. We're using pieces of ourself to relate to that. And so we do need to reconnect to that aspect of ourself that's being projected onto that thing to understand it in some way. So you're really collecting your own disparate pieces of self. And that's how you reawaken your feeling of wholeness, that we have the option to fragment into a feeling of disconnection. Yeah, I'll leave it there.